There's a reason why strong people don't hide their scars. While people in today's world try to hide their flaws as much as possible, there's an ancient philosophy that teaches us that our mistakes make us more powerful. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Have you ever noticed how many people live in hiding? Hiding mistakes at work, hiding insecurities in relationships, hiding flaws at the gym. Many act as if perfection is the goal, as if any crack in their own story is a reason for shame. But there is a 500-year-old Japanese philosophy that does the exact opposite, where artisans take broken ceramics and repair them with pure gold. They don't try to hide the crack, but they highlight it. They transform the imperfection into the most valuable part of the object, and the result, the repaired part, is worth more than it was when it was whole. Much more. This is called Kintsugi, and when you understand the philosophy behind this technique, you will never look at your flaws the same way again. Because what broke you didn't destroy you. It rebuilt you into something that no one else can be. Before we get to the video, I invite you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, like the video, and leave a comment below. I've been reading some of your comments, and I'm so happy to see how my videos are helping you to be more disciplined, to deal with problems, or to understand yourselves better. Today I read a comment from a subscriber who started her own channel, showing her journey preparing for an exam. I see that this content is really making a difference, even if it's small. Thank you so much for everyone's support. Now, let's go to the video. Chapter 1. The Breakdown. The story I'm about to tell you happened to an architect named Liam. A brilliant career, projects featured in international magazines, the kind of person everyone looks at and thinks, he made it. Until the day he couldn't anymore. Liam spent months developing his life's project, a cultural center that would be the hallmark of his career. He invested everything: money, time, reputation. He presented it to the city council with the certainty of someone who knows he's going to win. They rejected it at the first meeting. 15 minutes of presentation, months, maybe years of work were summed up in one sentence. That's not what we're looking for. He returned home and couldn't get out of bed for 2 days, not because he was tired, because something inside him had cracked. That certainty that he knew what he was doing, that identity of successful architect, had shattered like porcelain. Have you ever felt that? That moment when something you've built for so long simply crumbles, and worse, crumbles in front of everyone? Liam did what most people do. He tried to hide it. He cancelled meetings. He stopped posting on social media. When someone asked about the project, he changed the subject. The strategy was simple: pretend it never happened. Wait for everyone to forget. Rebuild the image of perfection. But there was a problem. The crack was there. Pretending it didn't exist didn't make the crack disappear. In fact, it made it grow. 3 months later, Liam was still paralyzed. He couldn't start any new projects because every time he opened his design software, he saw that rejected cultural center on the screen. The failure had become bigger than him. That's when his mother, who was born in Japan, did something strange. She picked up Liam's favorite teacup, deliberately dropped it on the floor, and said, "Now I'm going to show you what to do with broken things." Liam looked at his mother as if she had gone mad, but his mother only smiled and said one word: Kintsugi. Over the next few days, his mother taught Liam the technique. Take each piece of the broken cup, join it together with a mixture of lacquer and gold powder, and rebuild it. Not trying to hide the cracks, but highlighting them, transforming each crack line into a golden vein. At first, Liam didn't understand anything. It seemed like wasted effort. The cup was broken, why not throw it away and buy a new one? Why spend money on something ruined? But as he worked, as his hands applied the gold to the cracks, something began to change. Not in the cup, in him. His mother explained, "In Japan, we don't believe that broken things lose their value. We believe that the breakage is where the real story begins. Without the cracks, this cup was just like thousands of others. Now with these gold lines, this cup is unique, impossible to replicate." Liam looked at the reconstructed cup. Golden veins ran through the porcelain like a map of battles. The piece wasn't hiding its history. It was celebrating it. And it was there, with his hands stained with lacquer and gold, that Liam understood. He wasn't trying to fix a cup. He was learning to fix himself. Chapter 2. Gold in the Cracks. You need to understand one thing about Kintsugi that changes everything. It's not about making the piece revert to what it was before. It's about creating something that never existed. When Japanese masters developed this technique 500 years ago, they weren't trying to save money by repairing old pottery. They were making a philosophical statement: imperfection is not the end of beauty, it's the beginning of it. There's a concept in Zen Buddhism called wabi-sabi. It means finding perfection in imperfection, beauty in the transient, value in what is broken. It's the opposite of everything we learn in the West, where perfection means the absence of flaws. Liam began researching everything about Kintsugi. He discovered that in feudal Japan, after the emergence of this technique, some people would deliberately break their tea bowls in order to later rebuild them with gold. Think about it. They purposefully destroyed something valuable because they knew that rebuilding it would create something even more valuable. A psychologist at the University of Tokyo discovered something fascinating. When we analyze people who have achieved extraordinary success, we find a pattern. They all experienced significant failures that forced them to rebuild themselves. The difference between people who grow from failure and people who are destroyed by it is not in the intensity of the breakdown. It's in how they process the rebuilding. Liam spent 2 weeks working on that cup. Every crack received attention. Every piece was carefully positioned. The gold wasn't just glue, it was a statement. And when he finished, he held that cup and something clicked. He was looking at a physical metaphor for what he needed to do with his career. The rejected project wasn't the end, it was the raw material. The cracks weren't a failure. They were where the gold would go. Liam did something no one expected. Instead of hiding the rejection, he posted everything on social media. The entire project, the more than 6 months of work, the 15-minute meeting, the rejection. But now, he wasn't selling perfection. He was showing the process. He was highlighting the cracks with gold. The caption was simple: over 6 months of work, 15 minutes of rejection. What I learned may not fit in a post, but here's the beginning. His fellow architects thought he had gone mad. "You're destroying your reputation," they said. "No one will want to hire someone who publicly admits failure." But you know what happened? Exactly the opposite. Chapter 3. The Paradox of Vulnerability. Because when you stop hiding your cracks, people stop seeing you as fragile. They start seeing you as real. Liam received numerous messages in the first 24 hours, not from people feeling sorry for him, from people with plans. Business owners who had failed and rebuilt, entrepreneurs who were on the brink of collapse, investors who were looking for someone who understood that failure is not the end, it's fuel. One of them wrote, "I receive 50 portfolios a week from architects showing me only success stories. I don't believe any of them, because I know they're lying. You're the first person who has shown me the truth. And the truth is what I want on my team." This guy became his biggest customer in the following years. Here's what nobody tells you about vulnerability. We think showing weakness makes us weak. But showing weakness while you're still standing, that makes you unbeatable. Because anyone can seem strong when they're winning. True strength is continuing after a setback. And when people see that you've broken down and are still here, they don't see weakness. They see proof that you survive what destroys others. Liam redesigned the rejected project from scratch, but this time he wasn't trying to create perfection. He was incorporating the lesson of rejection into the design itself. The flaws the reviewers pointed out, he transformed them into intentional features. Months later, he presented the project again. Different, not better in the traditional sense, better in the sense of being impossible to ignore because it had history embedded in every decision, and the project was approved. The cultural center was built. It won awards. But it wasn't about the awards. Liam had discovered something that changed not only his career, but his entire way of being. He had learned that power doesn't come from never breaking or never failing. It comes from breaking and choosing how to rebuild. Do you want to know what really changed? The way he approached new projects. Before the breakdown, Liam was afraid of failure because he thought failure was the end. After Kintsugi, he was no longer afraid because he knew that failure was raw material. This changes everything. When you're not afraid to fail because you know you can rebuild yourself stronger, you stop playing defensively. You start taking real risks. He began accepting projects he previously refused because they were too risky. He started proposing ideas he would have kept to himself for fear of rejection. Because now he knew, if it fails, there's gold waiting. A neuroscientist from Stanford University explains, the human brain has an extraordinary capacity called neuroplasticity. When we go through significant disruptive experiences and manage to rebuild ourselves, we create new neural pathways that didn't exist before. We become different people, not despite the disruption, but because of it. 2 years after that cultural center, Liam was giving a talk at an architecture conference. At the end, a young architect approached him in tears. She had just lost the biggest project of her life to a competitor. "How do you deal with it?" she asked. "How do you keep going when you feel like you're not good enough?" Liam picked up the bag and took something out, the teacup. The first one he had reconstructed with his mother, with all those golden veins running through the white porcelain. "Do you see this cup?" Liam said. "This cup was once perfect. No marks, no history. Beautiful, but just like 1,000 others. Now look again. These gold lines, each one is a place where it broke, and now this cup is unique, impossible to replicate. It's worth more than it ever was whole." The young architect held the cup carefully, running her fingers along the golden cracks. "Though your project hasn't failed," Liam continued. "You've just gotten your first cracks. The question isn't whether you'll recover. It's what kind of gold you'll use to rebuild yourself." Chapter 4. The Choice of Gold. Here's what sets Kintsugi apart from any other repair technique: the deliberate choice to use gold. Japanese masters could use any material. They could use simple lacquer that would dry clear, making the crack almost invisible. But they chose gold, silver, platinum, precious metals that draw attention. It wasn't about hiding, it was about announcing. This thing broke, and look what we did with the broken part. Liam understood that this wasn't just about pottery, it was about life. Every time you break, you have a choice. You can try to glue the pieces back together so that no one notices. Or you can choose your gold and rebuild in a way that your imperfections become your strength. Gold is different for everyone. For Liam, it was a public vulnerability. It was turning rejection into a story he openly told. It was using failure as a credential instead of trying to erase it from his resume. But what is your gold? For some, it's humor. They take tragedy and turn it into a healing joke. For others, it's wisdom. They take pain and transform it into a teaching lesson. For still others, it's art. They take suffering and create inspiring beauty. The point is, the crack is going to be there anyway. The only question is whether you're going to try to hide it or highlight it with real gold. Liam started doing workshops on Kintsugi, not on ceramics. It was about life. People would arrive thinking they were going to learn a Japanese craft technique. They would leave having learned to recognize their own flaws as a source of power. An entrepreneur showed up after his startup went bankrupt. He lost everything: investors, team, money. He was there because he didn't know what to do with the pieces. Liam handed him a broken plate and a lacquered gold bowl. "Fix this," he said, "and while you're fixing it, I want you to think of each crack in this plate as a decision you made that didn't work out." The guy spent 3 hours working on that dish. In the end, when he held up the result, Liam asked, "What do you see?" "So I see, sir," he paused, looking at the golden lines. "I see that the cracks are what make it interesting. Without the cracks, it's just a boring white plate." "Exactly," Liam smiled. "Now tell me, what did you learn from each decision that broke your company?" And there, holding that reconstructed plate, he began to list them. Each failure held a lesson. Each breakdown had created an understanding he didn't have before. The problem wasn't that he had failed, it was that he was trying to hide the lessons the failure had taught him. 6 months later, he returned, a new startup. But this time, in every meeting with investors, He began by talking about his previous company that had failed. He described the flaws, and then he revealed the gold, everything he had learned. He raised twice the investment he got the first time. Chapter 5. The Crack Museum. Because the truth is, people don't invest in perfection, they invest in proven survival. In Japan, there are some museums that display Kintsugi ceramics, broken ceramics that have been reconstructed with gold. Liam visited one of those museums. He spent hours looking at each piece, and he noticed something that changed everything. The uncracked perfect pieces were in the corners. People passed by them quickly. But the ones rebuilt with gold? Many people wanted to see them up close. People took photos, delicately running their fingers along the golden veins. Perfection is boring. History is magnetic. Can you see where this is going? Your life is the same. The parts of you that broke and you rebuilt with gold? That's what sets you apart from everyone else in the world. Liam, he created a personal project. He asked friends, clients, even strangers on the internet to send him broken ceramic pieces they had at home. That teacup from his grandmother that fell, the wedding vase that cracked, the favorite plate that the dog knocked over. Items that people kept hidden in their closets because they had sentimental value but were too broken to wear. He rebuilt them all, with gold, and returned them with a letter. This piece is no longer broken. It's whole in a way it never was before. Use it. Celebrate. Let the golden cracks be the first thing people see, because now this piece has even more history. The responses he received were always the same. People crying, saying it wasn't about the cup, it was about themselves, that if a broken piece of pottery could become more valuable, perhaps they could too. And that's where the true power of Kintsugi lies. Kintsugi is not just a craft technique, it's permission. Permission to stop hiding, permission to let your cracks be visible, permission to believe that something broken and rebuilt is more powerful than ever having been tested. Chapter 6. Freedom in Imperfection. Do you want to know the most powerful thing that happens when you embrace your cracks? You stop being afraid. Think about it. Why do we hide our flaws? Because we're afraid that if people find out, they'll judge us, reject us, and see us as less than we are. But when you turn your cracks into gold, what's left to be afraid of? Liam told a story in his workshops. He was in a meeting with very important clients, super formal, conservative. In the middle of the presentation, the projector stopped working. PowerPoint wouldn't open. The entire presentation froze. What would the older version of Liam do? He would panic. He would nervously try to fix things while making lame jokes. He would apologize 1,000 times. He would leave feeling like he had ruined his own chance. Liam's Kintsugi version. He turned off his laptop, pushed it aside, and said, "You know, this reminds me of that time I spent a few months working on a project, and they gave me 15 minutes before rejecting it. I'll tell that story first, and then we'll go back to PowerPoint." He told his story, the rejection, the despair, the broken cup, the gold, the reconstruction, 15 minutes of pure history. When the presentation was over, the PowerPoint didn't even matter anymore. They closed the deal. One of the clients later said, "I've worked with architects for 30 years. Everyone sells perfection. You're the first person who sold me survival, and survival is what I need in this project." A Harvard researcher studying leadership and authenticity discovered leaders who demonstrate controlled vulnerability, that is, who share flaws but show what they have learned, generate 43% more trust in their teams than leaders who maintain an image of perfection. Our brains process honest vulnerability as a sign of strength, not weakness. Liam now has a collection of various Kintsugi pieces that he himself reconstructed. Each one has a story, and each story is a crack in someone's life transformed into gold. But his favorite piece remains the first one. That cup his mother broke on purpose. He uses it every day. He drinks coffee from it every morning, and every time he holds it, he sees the golden veins and remembers. Breaking down isn't the end. It's a new beginning. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be real. And real means cracked, tested, broken in places, but rebuilt with gold in your veins. People will tell you that you need to hide your flaws to succeed. They'll say that vulnerability is weakness, that admitting mistakes is the end of your career. These people are trying to sell perfect ceramics in a world that wants to see gold in the cracks. Chapter 7. Complete Transformation. Years after that rejection, Liam was being interviewed by an architecture magazine. The final question was, if you could go back in time, would you change anything? Would you redesign the original project so that it would be approved on the first try? His answer was perfect. No, because that approved project would have given me a cultural center. The rejected project gave me something more valuable. It taught me that I am stronger, broken, and rebuilt than I ever was whole. He opened his bag, took out his cup, and placed it on the interviewer's desk. It's worth more now than when it was perfect, me too. The interviewer held the cup, ran her fingers along the golden cracks, and Liam watched. I needed to hear that today, the woman said. I need to wear gold on my cracks. And that's the final point. The philosophy behind Kintsugi goes beyond ceramics. It speaks of new beginnings, resilience, and rebuilding oneself. It's about understanding that you will break. Life will break you. Relationships will break you. Career will break you. Dreams will break you. The question was never, if you're going to break. The question was always, what kind of gold are you going to use to rebuild yourself? Your cracks aren't flaws. They're the map of your journey. They're proof that you've been tested and survived. They're what makes you unique in a world full of perfect empty copies. When you embrace Kintsugi as a philosophy of life, you stop pretending you've never failed and begin to celebrate what each failure has taught you. You stop hiding your scars and start highlighting them with gold. And then, something strange happens. People who judged you begin to admire you, because in a world of perfect facades, broken and rebuilt authenticity is the most powerful thing that exists. You don't need to be perfect to be powerful. You just need to be brave enough to let your cracks shine through. If you enjoyed this video, if it helped you in any way, share it with someone you think needs to hear this message too. Remember, it's not your perfection that makes you powerful. It's your flaws, repaired with gold, that make you impossible to ignore. Thank you so much for watching until the end. See you in the next video.